Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of Ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Justin, welcome to this week's episode. I am really excited because we have something pretty darn special for everybody. So for those of you who are listening, this is Justin Bates. Justin Bates is part of Boots Financial and Strategic Financial. He is a financial planner. And one of the things that we both feel very strongly about is having a strong personal finance and business finance and really focusing on your finances. However, there's a lot of unknowns, and a lot of us, we feel like, man, we're so confused, or it's so scary and I don't know enough. And so because of that, we take no action, or maybe we're not necessarily taking the right action for us. We're doing what we've seen from people online, and maybe that's not the best advice for us. So Justin is somebody that I have worked with in the past through the Western Sports Foundation, and he is an incredible person, and I'm really excited to bring him on. So this week's episode, we're going to learn a lot more about Justin and his journey into what brought him into being a financial planner. And then we're actually going to kick off 6 months worth of bonus episodes. So on the first Thursday of every month, there is going to be a bonus episode related to some financial aspect, whether it is succession planning or planning for your retirement or how to set your kids up for financial success. Anything and everything, none of it's off limits or off the table. We'll also have a time where you guys can ask us your specific finance questions, and then we will hopefully be able to answer those. But we're really excited to bring this to light and just to kind of keep continuing on this journey. So Justin, with all of that, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you grew up, your life as a rodeo athlete, and how you became a strategic financial planner?
Yeah, love what Of the West is doing. Obviously, we're on the same page on that stuff. As far as where I grew up, I won't be ashamed if nobody's heard of it. It's the metropolis of Kingston, Arkansas. Here's a fun fact about Kingston, Arkansas. It's a small cattle ranch, northwest Arkansas. Out of curiosity, I did look it up. We are up to 126 people. That's about a 30% increase since COVID, all the people moving in. So yeah, we went from, we gained 29 people in the last 4 years. So it's a happening place. But anyway, booming. It's awesome. So, but that's where I grew up, like a lot of folks have, on a small ranch. And then, my grandpa owned a sale barn for a number of years, and, growing up as a kid, and me and my brother going to the sale barn with grandpa and learning all things you learn at a sale barn around a bunch of the old timers and that sort of thing. So that's how I grew up. And obviously the rodeo inside of it, did that as well. The team roping, bull riding. My dad, funny story there. My dad had actually at Middle Tennessee State University was one of the first people that helped found the rodeo team there back in the 60s. If that doesn't make me feel old, yeah. And he'd always said that. I actually looked it up and found a news article that had him in it. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Go Pops.
That is cool. So you guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like you've told me this in the past. On your ranching operation, did you guys raise longhorns? Is that right? Or Corianis or roping animals?
Yes, it was the Longhorns. For some reason, Dad got it. Of course, we had the team roping that we did, but we would sell the calves off as roping stock to there's a lot of ropers from around that area. Tyler Worley, NFR healer, he's from Bearville. I remember watching that kid ride around. I used to rope with his dad quite a bit, which again makes me feel old, even though I'm only 43. But yeah, Tyler Worley was about 3 years old riding around back whenever I was roping. But yeah, Dad had it in his mind that he wanted to raise longhorns, and he just loved them, thought they were cool. So that's what we did, which led to a whole lot more of fixing fences than you ever dreamed of, because they're not wild, but they don't want to turn around and just go back the other way. They just want to find a hole and keep on going one direction. So I'm an excellent fence builder too, if anybody needs help with that.
Finance advice, fence building, what can you not do? Okay, you didn't really talk about your career as a rodeo athlete, though. You were a bull rider.
Bull rider and team roper. So did both. I was better at roping than I was riding. Like most kids growing up, I thought, hey, this is what I'm going to do forever. But whenever I was 17 or 18, I thought I was better than I was. But
Don't all 17 or 18-year-olds think that they're better than they
I
are?
think that's par for the course, you know. But I remember getting on this bull, and about third jump, he spins to the right, dumps me off, steps on me. It was a bad deal. And about 2 or 3 months later, a lot of people know Luke Snyder, the Iron Man, rode in PBR forever. Well, he was a couple years younger than me, and he was from around about 2, 3 hours away. Well, anyway, he came down. There was his an IPRA rodeo or something like that in Harrison, Arkansas. And I'll never forget it. I'd already rode. I was done. I was sitting over next to my dad, just right in line with the chute, just kind of watching. And he had drawn that bull. And at that time, he wasn't Luke Snyder yet, but he was a 16-year-old that was getting a lot of attention. And so he had drawn that same bull, and he came out, same trip, 3 jumps, spin to the right. And about where he dumped me off is about where Luke just started just spurring the heck out of that thing and just made it look so easy. I don't even know if it'd make a good practice bull for him. And he was 2 years younger than me. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not like going to get to that next level if I got these no-name kids 2 years younger than me just making what I thought was hard look really easy. So that's kind of the end of my bull riding career, not long after that.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, but not long after that, though, you must have picked up a career as a financial planner. So how did we go from growing up on a ranch, raising longhorns, team roping, bull riding, into finance? Because that's not a common jump for most people.
No, it's not. I take a little heck because I'm about the only one in any seminar or convention I go to that's wearing starch jeans and cowboy boots to it. I don't sneak up on anybody walking down the hall. But how that came about, my dad was a good businessman, aside from the ranching part of it. And I was always intrigued by the numbers and always wanted to ride with my dad to the bank for no reason, just because I thought it looked cool in there. And they gave me a sucker probably. But if I wasn't going to be a rodeo athlete, that's like the only thing that I knew that I wanted to do. And so whenever I had the opportunity, I interviewed with a lot of the big name firms, but turned them all down because I thought there was a better way of doing it, and I found the right fit, and that's turned into what it is today. So it's been a great journey. It's what I've always deep down wanted to do and what I was meant to do, and most importantly, I get to work and be around the people that I enjoy working and being around. So it's been a really good fit.
Well, the thing that makes you stand out like a sore thumb at all of those conventions, the fact that you're wearing starched jeans and cowboy boots, is the reason that we have you here today. Because obviously, like we mentioned in the beginning, personal finance and business finance and just having a really strong knowledge of those areas is really important, not only for our success, but for the success of our future generations, right? Our children and grandchildren. But for those of us in the agriculture or Western industries, not everything that we hear out in the mainstream world necessarily applies to us because we have a very different way of life. And, we don't necessarily have salaries. Some of us do. But there are a lot of other aspects, especially for those who are on farms and ranches, which not all of our listeners are. But again, we just have a very different financial background, if you will. And that is why I am thrilled that we get to do this, because you do have the understanding. You came from an agriculture operation. You love the Western way of life. You work with people who are in agriculture and the Western world. And now we get to continue to bring your knowledge to the forefront. So let's dig into Boots Financial, which is a part of Strategic Financial, the company that you have. Tell us a little bit more about what you guys focus on, how you've become an expert in your field, all those details. We want to hear them.
Yeah. So what I was told from the very beginning, by mentors of mine in this industry is, the message was the same. And it's not a new message at all. But, if you want a successful practice and feel like you never work a day in your life, that's easy. Go out and find people that you like, that are like you, that you want to work with. And so whenever I early on, I was told that. I'm like, oh, well, all right, I'll just work with farmers, ranchers, rodeo athletes, and people who wear boots like I do. And that's where the name Boots Financial came from. Because I'm like, there's just not many people that wear boots that I probably won't be able to get along with pretty well. So that's where that came from, as complex a story as that is, right? But it's been great. And where we've resonated in the Western industry is really, it's a twofold thing. One is, like you said, we can speak their language because we're on the same side of the fence as they are. At the end of the day, we're a firm made up of advisors from the flyover states, as we call it. We're from the Midwest, and we're all used to dealing with that. And most of us have grown up in a similar fashion. Not many of us grown up rodeoing like I did, but small town guys, family owned farms. A lot of us are very, very familiar with the industry. And so that number one, but the second part of it might be even more important. And the Western industry, and you made a very, very good point. We aren't your typical financial situation because most people in Western industry, a lot of us, it's more complex than most. We've got people they're ranchers, but they also, aside from their cow-calf operation, they may have a construction company. Then the wife or husband may work with another company over here and they have all their family benefits through that company, and they got multiple things going on. There's a lot of people in the Western industry they have more irons in the fire than just one. And so with that becomes, okay, you can't be somebody that just plans for somebody that just worked for somebody else and they got the paycheck and that's it. You got family owned businesses, you've got the check coming from somebody else or multiple businesses. Those require a different kind of planning for each. And then the next step is you got to put all that together too, because they're all related to the family. So what helps us in that is no one advisor is going to be an expert in everything. And, we have some really, really, really good folks that are experts from all different kinds of backgrounds. And, our saying is the more complex it is, the more fun it is for us, because that's when we can pull on our team and say, all right, we need a whole lot more tax advice on this one, or we need a lot more succession planning, estate planning advice on this one. And let's work together on this to where we can make sure as a team they're getting the best of everything and really leaving no stone unturned to make sure they're getting the best service and the best plan that they can possibly get. And that's where we've really resonated probably the most is, there's no case too complex when you have the team that we do.
Again, how many times can a person say that they're excited about something without people getting bored by it? But you guys, I am really excited to continue to do this for those same reasons, because finance isn't something that we necessarily talk about. And I understand why that is, right? Like when somebody asks me, hey, how many head of cattle do you have? Like I usually politely tell them, like, that's not actually a question that you ask somebody. Same with like, how many acres do you own? How much do you make in a year? That's not necessarily questions that we ask one another. And because of that, unfortunately, we don't necessarily talk about financial stuff like, hey, what are you investing in? Or, hey, how did you pay off your debt? Or, hey, what are you doing for life insurance? Or, those are things that we don't talk about. And because they don't get talked about, it's really hard to educate yourself. It's really hard to make sure that this piece of advice that you think is the right advice, well, is it right for me or is it not right for me? So that is why I do encourage you guys, find a professional who you can really go into your specific financial story with in depth. That obviously can be Justin. That can be somebody at Boots Financial. It can be somebody who is your neighbor. We're not here to sell you anything. We genuinely just want to open the door to, what would you call this? Financial literacy.
Financial literacy, and just knowing that you're right. Like finances it's not what you want to talk about at Friday night, with your friends hanging out. It's not the most fun, exciting thing to talk about, but it's one of the two things that we all have to deal with, our health and our wealth. They're there no matter what we do. And the message I would give is nobody has a perfect financial plan. You could find the best financial planner in the world. They won't have the best perfect financial plan because maybe somebody's got one that's near perfect, but then life changes, changes are made, in our world, and now it's not perfect anymore. So it's always a continuing, evolving thing. And that's where, educating yourself, investing in yourself through education from professional, etc., people that have done it the right way, it's worth the time. I've never had anybody say, man, I just wish I hadn't wasted so much time learning financial literacy for myself. That what a waste. I don't hear that. So
No, I've never heard anybody say, man, I've read too many books in life, or like I've done too much research on something that has been able to make themselves stronger, better, provided for their family, any of that. So for the rest of this episode, we're going to walk through a few just like general, generic financial questions. That way we can kind of set a framework for what is this next 6 months of bonus episodes. So this episode obviously is going out today, the last Tuesday of August. Then next Thursday, we will have our first bonus episode, and those will continue. Honestly, we may take them past 6 months, who knows? But we've at least committed to doing this for the next 6 months because we want to just provide you guys that much information. So let's get to our first real finance question. What is the biggest issue facing Americans when it comes to personal finance?
that's an easy one. It is hands down lack of education. That is across the board what is needed most in this country. And when you think of education, we're all taught from the time we're little how important, we wish money was something that nobody had to worry about, because money's not everything. But it is something we're darn sure going to have to deal with, so you better learn it, and we're preached this all the time growing up. But the question is, anybody out there, think back to when you were in high school, when you're growing up and you're in your teenage years, you're in high school, how many financial literacy classes did you have?
None. I can answer that probably for 95% of our listeners right now. None. And it's a shame.
None, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, we all know you're going to have to deal with, you need to learn insurance, you need to learn savings, you need to learn debt and banking, investments, whatever. You need to save for retirement. We're told all that, but it's never taught. Well, the question is why? And whenever I explain this part, it's actually, and I'll get to it, but it's actually magnified in the Western industry. So this issue that's facing America, the biggest issue, which is a lack of education, is magnified when it comes to the Western industry. And I'll explain why that is here in just a second. And what we'll cover over the next 6 months and a lot of the topics we'll dive into will actually be narrowed down to really one of 4 different components that make up your financial world. And whenever I say you, I'm talking to everybody that's listening right now. It doesn't matter if you're 18 years old and just graduated high school, or if you're 70 years old and comfortably retired. We're all still dealing with the same 4 components. And that is, we have our protection component, which is things are there to protect us. Our insurances, our health insurance, if we have a trust or we have a will, if we have life insurance, if we have those different things going on, they're meant to protect us in case life doesn't go as planned. Or as I like to say, in case life happens. We have our savings component, which is money that's put back. We have our debt and debt management. And then we have investments, which are meant to, we want our money to grow for us. So one day our money is working for us, so we don't have to work. And when it comes to those things, they're just not taught. And the question becomes, why are they not taught? And so when you think about it, 4 institutions or types of institutions, I'll say, are the ones that control money and finance in America. Jesse, do you want to take any guesses as to what those 4 institutions are? I'll put you on the spot here.
The government?
The government.
Is that one of them?
You got the biggest one first. Yes. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, perfect.
You get a sticker. I'll send you one in the mail. So the government's one. And what does the government want from us?
They want our money in the form of taxes.
Taxes. That's the big one. And so when you think of taxes, the average American is paying 20 to 30% of every dollar they make, giving it in taxes. Why are they not educated on that? Okay, that's a big deal. If I said, hey, Jesse, you got $1,000 in your wallet, just give me 300 of it. You're probably not going to want to do that, And so taxes in the government is the first one. We're all probably going to have to deal with banks, and banks want to get money from us in the form of interest. We have insurance companies. They want our premiums from us. And a lot of people don't consider insurance as a form of part of your financial world. But if you think about it, how many insurance policies does the average, we'll say, family of four have?
Health insurance, vehicle insurance, life insurance.
Now let's times that by, say, we got a couple. We got a husband and wife. Maybe there's two cars, so there's two policies. You got the house, there's that one. Maybe you got a rental property, there's another one. Maybe you got a boat.
And it's just like a generic mainstream family. Now there's crop insurance and livestock protection insurance and equine insurance. Fire insurance. We insure our grass.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different policies out there on the protection side of things.
I actually have my golf clubs insured for $8 a year in case somebody ever steals them. And I wish somebody would, because I'd get a whole new set for $8. I thought about just leaving them, if I'm ever in the city somewhere, just leaving them standing up in the back of my truck so somebody just come take them, but I won't do that. But anyway, so we got the insurances, and then of course Wall Street, they want our fees from us. So in a nutshell, when you think of insurance premiums, fees on our investments, interest on our debt, and taxes on our income, those four things are what we all have to deal with. And if we can take, and you really think up about how much of your annual income is going out the door to those four things, that's a significant portion of it.
That's the majority of it.
Yeah. And so when people ask, and I was doing a clinic for the Western Sports Foundation one time, and I was so proud of her too. She's probably freshman, sophomore in college, and she asked, she's like, why aren't they educating on it? And so I said, well, if you think about those four institutions, do they prioritize me and you over themselves? And the answer is no. I mean, they're not the bad guys. We need a good government. We need banks. We need insurance companies, etc. So they're not the bad guys, but at the end of the day, they're there to make money just like we are. And so that's why they don't necessarily want to pull back the curtain on how to deal with them the best, because they're going to put themselves number one and we're going to be number two. And so if we can go through and educate ourselves on how to deal with those four institutions to where we are now utilizing them with our best interest in mind first and put them second, then we're going to come out a whole lot better. Because if we can even take just a piece of that pie that we're giving away to them, that, like you said, that's a pretty big piece of the pie. If we can narrow that down some, then we can make the same money, but just have a lot more of it stay in our pocket for our benefit. And so if that makes sense, that is the issue explained as a whole from a high level. But when you think about the Western industry, though, the reason why that is magnified is, where do most people that are in the Western industry, where do they live?
Rural America.
Rural America. So if you live in Manhattan, there's probably a lot of financial experts around that you could walk within 100 yards and probably find a good one. But when you get into rural America, like Kingston, Arkansas, there wasn't any financial planners around, let alone a good one. And so, yeah, the lack of opportunity to work with somebody, it's just not there. And to be honest with you, the Western industry as a whole is kind of ignored by the finance world, because a lot of them just don't understand people in the Western world. And a lot of them think, oh, they're just a bunch of, nothing to do country folk. And it's just not true. So not only are they ignored, but they're just a lack of people to talk to begin with. So that's why that problem is magnified even more. But as much as I hate technology, I'm happy for it now, because now that distance, that seclusion, it's not an issue anymore, because we can reach people regardless of where you're at. And so I do appreciate technology for that one thing.
For that one thing. No, and that's kind of the point of what we want to do here, is just peel back the curtain a little bit and provide more clarity and awareness around things that, maybe you're not comfortable asking your friends or your family, or maybe they're not even the right people to ask, because you want to be asking people who are doing it correctly. And, maybe you don't know how to find a strategic financial planner or fiduciary. So again, this is really the purpose of what this series is going to be. Okay, so we talked about protection, savings, debt, and investments. Those are the 4 pillars of finance. Is there anything else that you want to cover there?
No, for now, we'll keep it to those 4. In future episodes, if you have questions, by all means, reach out. We will be diving into getting in the weeds a little bit more on those specifically in turn. But that's the main thing that I want people to realize is if you can focus on educating yourself on those 4 things, you're going to come out in a better place because of it.
Absolutely. Okay, so you brought this up a little bit earlier, but again, I just want to kind of paint this picture for all of our listeners because we do have a variety of people from different backgrounds, different ages, different demographics. And you had mentioned earlier whether you are 18 or 70. So is it ever too early or too late to start financial planning?
What I have seen across the board that we'll talk about both extremes, okay? We'll go that route. So let's say you are the 15-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old, whatever. You're early on in your financial career, so to speak. It's never too early. And an analogy that I like to use is, and I'm going to go back to my rodeo roots for just a second. If you had never been on a horse before, never picked up a rope before, but you said, hey, I want to be a team roper. All right, you got 2 options. One, you go buy a horse, buy a saddle, buy all the gear, buy a rope, and just go out to a practice pen and just start chasing steers. How well is that going to go for you?
There's probably going to be a little learning curve there.
But you probably won't catch anything. You don't have to worry about getting your thumb cut off because you probably won't catch anything anyway. But hey, there you go. But
Good point.
Yeah, but let's go the other route and say that you say, okay, I'm serious about this. I know I want to do it. So before I do anything, I'm going to go to a roping school and have a professional show me how to do things the right way from the get-go and make sure. Well, if we were to take those 2 people, call them person A and person B went to the roping school first, if we fast forward a year later, who's probably going to be way further along?
The person with the educated foundation of skills, because it doesn't matter if it's roping, if it's business, or if it's finance, it is about having a strong foundation and learning the basics and being able to build on those basics.
Correct. And so for the younger people, it's never too early because the earlier you start and you work with a professional to do it, there's no bad habits there. You do things right from the get-go, you're going to get where you want to go so much faster. And when I say professional, it doesn't necessarily have to be me or a financial planner. Maybe it is just some very successful person that you look up to that you know, and you go pick their brain and talk to them, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to take somebody, especially a young person, under their wing and give them advice and be a mentor for them. And that doesn't cost you anything. They will be willing to help, I promise you. So I think that's great for anybody of any age, I don't care how young you are, to go and find that person that can be your mentor and look up to, and it will pay dividends, I promise you. And it will shorten that learning curve tremendously. Going the other route, going to, let's say that you're 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever, and maybe you're already retired and you're living comfortably. And by all means, hats off to you. I can almost promise you earned it. What I would tell to those folks, though, is in almost every scenario, you actually have more wealth and more income than what you think that you have. I have yet to see, and I've talked to the guys that have been doing this for 30 years, and it goes, kind of mentioned on this earlier, nobody has a perfect financial world that is working as efficiently as it possibly could. And the reason is, one, we're all too busy. And 2, even if it is near perfect, life changes. Life happens. Outside forces change. Taxes change. Interest rates change. Look what inflation's done. And now it's not perfect anymore. So my encouragement to those folks is, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for leaving more down to future generations or charities, whatever it might be, you probably are in a better financial situation than what you realize. It's just getting down to where we find out, hey, how can we make yours as efficient as possible, to where, again, you're in the driver's seat when it comes to dealing with those institutions. And that's where everybody deserves to be. And that's where we want to get you.
Okay, I think I have one more question for today before we hit the rapid fire round. And again, this is just bringing more awareness around, let's say that somebody is inspired by this episode or future episodes, and they do want to make finance more of a focus, but they're not necessarily sure where to turn to. What is it that somebody should look for in an advisor? And can you kind of explain the difference between an advisor and a planner and a fiduciary? Because again, these are words that, maybe some people are very familiar with and other people have no idea what that means. And there are differences, and not just anybody is the right fit for everybody.
Correct. So when you think of the term financial advisor, and I'm not going to speak for every advisor out there because there are advisors that try to focus more on the planning side of things as well. But in general, that's going to be your guys and gals that focus more on investments than anything. So those conversations are going to be centered around, do you have money that you want to invest? And if so, let's talk about that. And that's kind of the beginning and the end. Whereas a planner will do that as well, but they're also going to look at more of, okay, do you want to look at your whole picture, which would be, your protection component, your savings component, your debt management, and your investments? And do you want us to look at the whole thing and take all four of those things? Because decisions you make in one of those components will have an effect on the rest of it too. If you put $1 towards paying down debt, that's $1 that's not going towards investment. So there's consequences on both sides, as an example. So that's the difference between an advisor and a planner. Some people just have that one itch that they want to scratch, and that's fine. But if you want to go and really get the most out of your financial world, then I would go with a planner that will look at everything, not just your investment.
Perfect. Okay, any other thing that maybe we forgot to lay this solid foundation for these future episodes? Otherwise, I'm gonna hit you with the rapid fire.
Sure. I love it. I talk slow, but I can think a little bit faster than I talk. So let's give it a shot.
Okay. What's the best piece of business or personal advice that you've ever been given?
This will kind of fall into both. I would say know your worth, because if you look at yourself and your worth as a person isn't as high as it should be, you're going to know about it. And that can be a pretty motivating thing to make you pick up and go get something done.
If you could give people any words of wisdom and you knew that they would take it to heart, what would it be?
Oh, that's an easy one. There's a positive to everything. You just got to find it.
I will say, Justin, anytime I've ever been around you, you really are the most positive, uplifting, always have a smile on your face. Have you just naturally always been that way?
I'm naturally a little bit of a goofball at heart, and I like people to be happy, successful, and everybody to do good. And that saying is actually my own. Maybe it'll be on a bumper sticker one day, but there's positive to everything. You just got to find it.
Oh, okay. If you could go to dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
That would be my dad. We unfortunately lost him in 2011. So if I could go have dinner with him and let him see his grandbabies one time, that'd be pretty special.
Oh, what is a quote that you lead your life by?
I really go by the old, it's a Zig Ziglar quote. You'll have all you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I think that relates to my job just to a T. If I always put my clients first and leave me completely out of the equation, then I'll be just fine on the back end.
Oh, I know. You had told me that before, even when it came to talking about yourself and letting people get to know you on this podcast. And I did have to unfortunately tell you that no, people do want to know more about you and learn more about you, because that is what helps us build trust. You're not just anybody out there who wants to take somebody's money or is not going to give them great advice. You are a real person who helps a variety of people within our industry. You come from our industry. That is something very, very special. So I'm glad that you put yourself first for today's episode. But my last rapid fire round question for you is, let's talk about your favorite things. Do you have a favorite book, podcast, program, product, service, anything out there that you think that has improved your life in some way that more people need to know about?
This is going to sound cheesy, and my two daughters make fun of me for it, but I've read almost every Louis L'Amour book ever written. I think I've only got like 5 to go, and some of them I've read twice. And I always said, and I haven't done it yet, but I was going to have my daughters, I have a 14-year-old, is my oldest, and have her do a book report on some of those books. And the reason is the characters in those books, like he's always had a very strong display of, hey, this is the character, what a real person, what a real man should be, etc. And so I've just always loved those books, and I think there's more to be learned from them than what people think. So there you go. I love Louis L'Amour books.
Louis L'Amour used to be like, that's what everybody read. And now I wonder if people really still read those books. They're amazing. Somebody similar, which maybe you or other listeners have read. Have you ever read any Elmer Kelton books?
I have not.
He's a very similar author. Okay, he's very similar to Louis L'Amour. He has written a pile of books. I'm going to say probably 20 or 30 of them. And my dad and my mom both have read all of them. He is the Louis L'Amour to them, but he's a really good author as well. So if anybody out there like you loves Louis L'Amour books and you want something else that's kind of similar, Elmer Kelton is definitely the way to go. Awesome. Okay, well, Justin, I feel like we've kind of finished up today's episode. As mentioned, you guys, we are going to be back here next Thursday with our first bonus episode of the month. And we are going to focus on the topic of retirement. So it's going to be a really great episode, just kind of talking more about, how much does a person need to retire and how do you start planning for that? And if you have a salary in the business that you work for, contributes to your 401k, or are you an entrepreneur and you don't have a 401k, or if you're somebody who doesn't even know what 401k means, this episode is going to be for you. But we're really excited and just looking forward to what we can do and just, again, help provide and create more awareness and education around finance these next few months and hopefully keep it even going past the next 6 months. And as I mentioned before in the beginning of the episode, if you guys have a specific question that you want us to ask, we will absolutely put a call out for those. So go to Of the West's Instagram, send us a DM. I know we'll pop it up in stories and have you guys drop your questions in our question box, but we're really looking forward to this. Justin, thank you so much for saying yes to this crazy idea. I know that you are just as excited about it as I am, and I'm really looking forward to this. So with that, you guys, that was Justin Bates. He is awesome. This is not the last time you're going to hear from him, though. So catch us back here next week.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.